like with skills, with gear, but usually you're stuck kind of mostly with Yolna, Alkosh, and Trials as main tank. As off tank, as long as you have Eben, you can run almost anything, and you probably wouldn't get complaints. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what I post will probably be Yolna, Alkosh. But honestly, if you don't have Alkosh, run Torogs, you're good. Just keep in mind that you'll want Alkosh whenever you're in Maul. Like Maul of the Infernal. No. Maul of Larkash. Confusing things. So definitely if you're ever in that trial, ask the group for, you know, Lightning Staff, Frost Staff, Sword and Board, necklace, rings, like get all that stuff. Definitely. And if you have more than one class, it's good to have even more than one set. Even if you want to test out different like enchants on your jewelry, you totally can. If you want to try like a couple Harmony with Triune and with Infuse, like it's completely up to you. I think I have 4 or 5 full sets of Alkosh, like golded out and everything. Just because I have so many different tanks, so it's definitely good to get any Alkosh you can get. But as a replacement Torogs, you can do any of that thing in Torogs, you'd be fine. You might get some complaints from some more elitist groups, but it's good enough. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just commenting about how your pronunciation, that you've just been doing a lot of talking, so it's easy to happen.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Are all you guys on DKs or making DK tanks? Nice.
I had an old Stam DK that I wasn't doing anything with, so I was planning on converting it.
Nice. I did that once too, yeah. It's cool. They'll have, certain classes will be better in certain content. That's why I have like one of every mag DPS race, or class, I mean not race. And then I'll have like one of every tank race, just cause, well, especially with DPS, DPS is always changing. Like every patch there's a new meta almost. Tanking, there's certain classes you want to use in certain places, like VCR. I'll always use my Warden tank just because there's a skill that the last boss uses that can be 100% negated by one of the Warden skills, and it almost kills a DK through block, that skill, so it helps a huge deal with resources and just comfortability. So it's good to have other classes like Warden, DK, definitely good to have at least DK, and if you enjoy tanking and you want another class, Warden's usually a good choice. And yeah, you normally won't get complaints about your class. If you're not running DK, you may get a few complaints about not having Stonefist in group, because a lot of endgame groups will want the one of the tanks to use it. It's super like draining on Stam though. Like you have to be very cautious using it because it uses a lot of Stam, because you have to use it so many times. You have to use it, I believe it's 4 times in a row. And it's like every 15 or 20 seconds. And I believe it's like 2,500 Stam each time, so it gets really expensive.
What does it do exactly? Just it stuns people, or?
Yeah, let me find it. I don't think I have the right morph of it yet.
Well, I have Stonefist for it, and it says activating the ability again allows you to launch part of the debris at an enemy, dealing physical damage up to 3 times. The final cast stuns enemies hit for 3 seconds.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a morph of that. It's called, I have it, hold on, it's called Stone Giant. Yeah.
Oh.
Which, so that debuff is the stagger at the very bottom. Each hit applies stagger, increasing the damage taken by 50 per stack for 6 seconds. So that's like a debuff to the boss. So whenever you apply that, it adds up. Like you have a 12-man group constantly DPSing, and you keep that up for even like half as long as, even like 50% uptime. It's a big help to the DPS. And then other classes as well. Normally you'll have a warden healer in group, or a mag warden DPS, or even a stam warden. Healers really like it when you're on a warden tank and you do the Fletcher for them, because normally that's one of the skills they'd use, and that'll free up one of their slots to use something else. So if you're on a warden, you definitely want to be using Fletchers in your rotation as your debuffs. And the healers will love you for it. But those two are definitely like the best classes. I like Sork a lot though. Sork is a lot of fun. Nightblade is really fun too, but it's like a little bit stressful because not having that burst heal. Necro, I never really got into tanking on a Necro. I tanked it a little bit, but haven't done it much. And then Templar is just super, super hard to tank on in trials. Cool.
Now, for this activity we were doing, this is to tell if you're ready for trials,
yeah, for
or
like vet trials. If you can stay alive for 2 minutes straight, you're ready for vet trial damage. Like,
so at my level, like I'm at like 260 or something like that. That's just, it's not really.
It'll make it harder, that's for sure. You'll take more damage.
Okay. Because you're not really running vet trials.
There's not really like
500 or so.
My first vet trial was on a DK. It was actually this trial. It was on a DK, and I was CP 486, I believe.
Okay.
That was a long time ago, and like, I was running selfish sets, and I was fine. Like, the healers were good, I had no issues. Honestly, as long as you're like CP 300, you could probably do any content in this game at CP 300. It'll just make it a little bit more difficult. If you're if you're A10, it'd be easier for sure. But it's definitely doable. Like, CP makes a bit of difference, but it'll help. CP also helps with your max resources, so as you gain more CP, your max health and max stamina, max mag will go up a little bit. But yeah, definitely doable. Like, you can definitely do vet trials tank as long as you're at least 160. You'll totally be fine. If you're if you know you've practiced this a bit and are comfortable staying alive for a couple, like 1 or 2 minutes at least. I've been in like multiple trials guilds where the requirement was this, to stay alive for 2 minutes there, and they'd let you tank vet Craiglorns and stuff like that once you provided a video staying alive for 2 minutes, which I would agree. Like, staying alive for 2 minutes on that, it's pretty difficult, but once you get it down, you can totally tank vet trials and not have too many issues with it. It's still like a huge jump from normal. Like, enormous jump from normal. Anything vet.
What about normal trials? Is there a CP recommendation for that?
Nah. You can honestly tank, as long as you have Pierce, heavy armor, and close to like 30,000 resistance and about 35k health, you could probably tank anything on normal, honestly. Which You would need some of your heavy armor passives. So it would probably be a little bit difficult if you're under level 50. If you're tanking something normally. Like if you're tanking a trial on normal under 50, you probably have a bit of trouble keeping your stam up because you wouldn't have all those passes. Some of those passes for sustain are towards the end of the sword and shield tree. You can tank any trial on normal, like under 50 though. Or any dungeon. Trials, you'll have trouble.
Alright,
But if you're over 50, you can tank any normal trial, honestly. As long as you have your passes, you'll be fine. And then vet, it's a bit of a jump, like it's definitely a noticeable jump in the damage you take. And then, like, as you're tanking vet trials, it's as well, like, kind of the same thing with dungeons. It's a bit of a progression. Like, you're tanking a vet trial, you're probably not gonna jump into, VMAL within, like, one of your first vet trials, because it's super mechanic heavy and super difficult to tank. Unless you're at least a little bit experienced. So, like, normally, you'd start kind of in the Craiglorn trials, so Hell Ra, Sanctum Ophidia, or Arenthian Archive. Arenthian Archive is a really good tank test, that last boss. If you can survive that, you're doing well. Without issues and holding aggro on the axis at the end. You're doing well. And then the next hardest trial would probably be Asylum Sanctorum. And then probably SS, like Sunspire on Vet. And then Hoff. VMAL is somewhere in there. Like VMAL and Hoff are probably about the same difficulty. Hoff is... they're both really mechanic heavy. But those are like the harder trials to tank. So it's kind of as you're become really comfortable, you can try those. You can try them anytime, honestly, but they're not the easiest to learn. Like my first VMAL clear was like after months of prog.
I'm
And
sorry,
then same
what's
with
prog? Is that just like pickup groups?
like progression. Yeah, progression group. So it'd be like a 12-man group that'll go like once or twice a week, maybe more, and just go into the same trial over and over until they complete it, kind of thing.
And do we have that within the guild?
I believe Jurs has been doing vet trials on Sundays. Is that right, Joey?
Yeah, he's
okay,
crag
cool.
trials that he's doing on a rotation now.
Yeah, those are definitely like a good place to go. Sweet. Yeah, so those are like definitely good options for you guys. I would definitely suggest getting your feet wet in some like vet dungeons first, like at least a few number 2s tanking it before trying to go into like a vet Craiglorn trial. You could probably go in without completing them, but it might be a bit of a an eye-opener, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've done several of the number 2s.
Awesome.
But I don't know, the DLC actually I find more difficult than
Oh yeah,
the number 2s.
way harder.
Even the normal DLC compared to a vet number 2, just because of the mechanics are often
Yeah, it's
a
true.
lot more involved.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
it
did
depen-
I think today was the Moon Hunter Keep, and
Oh yeah, that one's difficult.
that was even a normal was it wasn't
Yeah.
as easy as some of the number 2s. So
It does make a big difference on the DPS as well. Like, if the DPS are survivable and doing really good damage, tanking gets a lot easier. It's still like you'd have to be somewhat experienced for like vet DLC dungeons. You can go in with amazing DPS, but if you can't survive for more than a couple minutes on a boss, then it doesn't matter how good the DPS are, you know what I mean? But it definitely, like, some of the groups I run with will burn through some of those like DLC dungeons in, you know, less than half an hour. But that's only because the DPS are so good and so experienced. So it does make a big difference, DPS, as well as the tank. Like, your ability to debuff and buff and keep those timers up will definitely help the DPS. So it's like a whole group thing. Like, the more DPS there is, the easier things are to tank. But I definitely like recommend finding ones kind of either at like your CP level or skill level, or even like people you like to run with, trying to, you know, get a regular pledges going kind of thing. Like, you know, do pledges a couple times a week, and as you're doing that, you'll get a lot of experience tanking dungeons, because, you know, you'll have 2 easier dungeons and then a DLC dungeon after, kind of thing. Like, that's how I started out. Like, I don't know how many times I've done pledges. Well, at one point I had over 400 like keys, so
Wow.
you know, you can do it a lot. Like, yeah. So, you know, you do the first 2 on hard mode, and then the third one you just do vet. And that's very good practice, just doing that, honestly.
Have you cleared all the vet trials and everything?
I've done every vet trial. I haven't done all the hard modes yet. So, I've done every hard mode but Cloud Rest hard mode in the game. And I haven't done Sunspire. We did one of the hard modes, but not all of them. And the new trial, Kind's Aegis, we haven't done hard mode yet either. But every other trial I've done hard mode on.
Nice.
Like, either tank or DPS, it's... But I progged, like, whew. VMAL was a hard prog. But it gets easier, like, as you work your way up, everything gets easier. Like, you know, you go into dungeons now and it's no issue with all the practice you get, kind of thing. And the same with trials. Like, it's super difficult at the beginning. And like, if the burn isn't insane, then it's gonna be rough, but the more practice you get in your dungeons, the easier of a learning curve you'll have in, you know, the vet trials, because you'll see a lot of the similar stuff, like VMAL, the first boss. It has almost identical. One of the mechanics is very similar to one of the dungeons, Scalecaller Peak. There's like these 2 trolls in the beginning of Scalecaller Peak, where one of the mechanics is the same mechanic as the stand behind the pillar phase. So it's just similar stuff to that. A lot of the mechanics are repeated between dungeons and trials. Yeah. Is there any other questions or anything? Cool. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks a lot, man.
everyone.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, any questions you have, like, don't be feel free to tag me or PM me or whatever. Anything about anything tanking. We've done every class, and yeah, done a lot. Cool.
Alright, well, thank you.
All
You
right.
guys have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
you too.
Have a good night.
Yeah, likewise. Bye. Have a good night.
Thanks.